The year was 1873. Texas stretched out, vast and unforgiving under a relentless sun. Dust devils danced across the cracked earth, mirroring the swirling uncertainty in Eliza Cole's young heart. At just 19, she wasn't supposed to be a mother, a provider, the sole protector of 6 young lives. But life rarely followed the path one expected, especially not in this harsh land. Frank and Margaret Cole, Eliza's parents, had vanished like smoke in the wind. One morning, they were there, their faces etched with a desperation Eliza hadn't understood. The next, only a note remained, scrawled on a scrap of paper. Gone to find our fortune. You're strong, Eliza. Take care of the little ones. The little ones. 6 pairs of eyes, ranging from baby Thomas, barely a year old, to 10-year-old Sarah, all looking to Eliza for answers she didn't have. There was little Mary, who was 3, quiet and clingy. Then came 5-year-old John, full of boundless energy and questions. 8-year-old Peter was a dreamer, lost in stories and always hungry. And quiet Sarah, who tried her best to help but was still just a child herself. Their small shack, a temporary haven on rented land, suddenly felt like a prison. The meager garden Frank had tended withered under the scorching sun. The few chickens they owned stopped laying eggs. The money Frank had left was disappearing fast. Eliza rationed what little food they had, a thin gruel of cornmeal, sometimes supplemented with wild berries if they were lucky enough to find them. Hunger gnawed at their bellies, a constant, aching reminder of their precarious situation. Eviction loomed like a dark cloud. The landowner, a gruff man named Mr. Henderson, had been patient at first. But patience, Eliza knew, wore thin when rent wasn't paid. She overheard him talking to a neighbor, his voice heavy with resignation. Can't keep them there for free. Got my own family to feed. Eliza spent sleepless nights wrestling with her fear. She tried to hide it from her siblings, putting on a brave face, singing them songs, telling them stories of a brighter future. But the fear was always there, a cold knot in her stomach. She knew she had to do something, anything, to keep her family together. She couldn't let them starve. She wouldn't let them end up on the streets. She had promised her parents she would take care of them, and Eliza Cole always kept her promises. The days bled into weeks, each one a struggle against the relentless Texas landscape. The sun beat down mercilessly, turning the earth to dust and baking the small shack until it felt like an oven. Water was scarce. The nearby creek, once a source of life, dwindled to a muddy trickle. Eliza made the children drink sparingly, knowing every drop was precious. The hunger was a constant companion. Eliza tried different ways to find food. She taught Sarah and Peter how to identify edible plants, though their yield was meager. She tried setting snares for rabbits, but they were too small and quick. John, with his boundless energy, would chase grasshoppers, but even a handful of those didn't go far. One sweltering afternoon, little Mary collapsed while playing. Her face was pale, and her eyes were vacant. Eliza scooped her up, her heart pounding with fear. She dipped a cloth in the remaining water and dabbed Mary's forehead, praying silently. "Please, not now," she whispered. "Please, not like this." That night, Eliza couldn't sleep. She lay awake, listening to the shallow breaths of her siblings, the creaking of the shack, the mournful howl of a coyote in the distance. She knew they couldn't survive much longer like this. They needed food, water, and a safe place to stay. The thought of leaving their shack terrified her. It was the only home they had ever known, however meager. But staying meant certain death. She had to be brave. She had to do what was best for her family. In the dim light of dawn, Eliza made her decision. She would walk to the nearest town, about 15 miles away, and beg for help. She would swallow her pride and do whatever it took to save her siblings. She woke the children gently, her voice firm but soothing. "We're going on a little trip," she said, trying to sound cheerful. "We're going to find a new home, a better place to live." She packed what little they had, a blanket, a few clothes, a rusty cooking pot. She took Thomas in her arms and led the others out of the shack, their small faces filled with a mixture of fear and hope. As they walked away, Eliza glanced back at their old home, a lump forming in her throat. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew one thing for sure. She would never give up on her family. She would face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and determination, for their sake. They were all that mattered. The journey to town was grueling. The sun beat down on them, turning the dusty road into a shimmering mirage. Little Thomas, heavy in Eliza's arms, whimpered with thirst. The older children trudged along, their small legs aching, their faces streaked with dirt and sweat. They passed abandoned homesteads, their windows like empty eyes staring out at the desolate landscape. Eliza told the children stories to keep their spirits up, tales of brave pioneers and hidden oases. But even her voice began to crack with exhaustion. By midday, they were all but crawling. Sarah stumbled and fell, scraping her knee. Eliza knelt beside her, her heart aching with helplessness. She cleaned the wound with a corner of her already filthy shawl and offered Sarah a reassuring smile, though her own eyes were filled with tears. "We're almost there," she lied. "Just a little further." As they pressed on, they saw something in the distance, a rider on horseback. Eliza shielded her eyes, squinting against the glare. As the rider drew closer, she saw that it was a woman, her face weathered and strong. The woman reined in her horse and looked down at them, her expression a mixture of curiosity and concern. "What are you doing out here, little ones?" she asked, her voice surprisingly gentle. Eliza hesitated, her pride warring with her desperation. But the woman's kind eyes gave her courage. "We're going to town," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We need help." She explained their situation, her voice trembling as she spoke of her parents' abandonment, the hunger, the eviction notice. The woman listened patiently, her gaze never wavering. When Eliza finished, the woman dismounted her horse. "My name is Martha," she said, "and I'm going to help you." Martha explained that she lived on a ranch about halfway between their shack and town. She offered to take them back to her ranch, where they could rest, eat, and get their strength back. Eliza hesitated. She didn't want to be a burden. "We don't have anything to offer," she said, her voice filled with shame. Martha smiled. "You have each other," she said, "and that's more than enough." With renewed hope, Eliza and her siblings climbed onto Martha's wagon. As they rode towards the ranch, Eliza looked back at the road they had traveled, a sense of gratitude washing over her. They were still far from safe, but they were no longer alone. Someone had seen their plight and offered a helping hand. And in the harsh landscape of 1873 Texas, that was a miracle. Martha's ranch was a haven. A sprawling, single-story house stood nestled amongst cottonwood trees, a vegetable garden bursting with life, and the distant sound of cattle lowing in the fields. It was a stark contrast to the desolation they had left behind. Martha welcomed them with open arms, ushering them into a cool, shaded room. She brought them water, fresh bread, and a pot of stew simmering on the stove. The children devoured the food, their faces beaming with relief. "Eat up, little ones," Martha said, her eyes twinkling. "There's plenty more where that came from." After they had eaten, Martha showed them to a room with soft beds and clean linens. The children collapsed onto the mattresses, exhausted but content. Eliza helped Thomas settle, then sat beside Sarah, who was still favoring her scraped knee. "Thank you, Martha," Eliza said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know what we would have done without you." "Nonsense," Martha replied, patting Eliza's hand. "We all need a little help sometimes." Martha explained that her husband had passed away a few years ago, leaving her to run the ranch on her own. She had hired hands, but they were always coming and going. She could use some help with the chores, if Eliza was willing. Eliza didn't hesitate. "We're willing to do anything," she said. "We want to earn our keep." Martha smiled. "I know you do," she said, "and I have a feeling you'll fit right in." The next morning, Eliza and the older children started working on the ranch. Eliza helped Martha in the garden, tending to the vegetables and gathering eggs from the chicken coop. Sarah and Peter helped with the smaller chores, feeding the chickens and collecting firewood. Even John, with his boundless energy, helped by chasing away the birds that tried to steal the crops. As the days turned into weeks, the Cole family began to thrive. They were no longer hungry, they had a safe place to sleep, and they were surrounded by kindness and support. Eliza learned new skills, from gardening to milking cows. The children grew stronger and healthier, their laughter echoing through the ranch. But Martha's ranch wasn't the final destination. Martha knew of a nearby rancher, Samuel Hayes, who needed help on his ranch. She had known him for years and thought that Samuel could help Eliza and her siblings. She thought that this was where Eliza's determination would truly lead them, and that perhaps Samuel could use a family as much as Eliza's siblings needed a home. A week later, Martha hitched up her wagon and drove Eliza and her siblings to Samuel Hayes' ranch. The ride was shorter than their trek to town, but Eliza felt a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. She was grateful for Martha's help, but the thought of relying on yet another stranger filled her with unease. As they approached the ranch, Eliza saw a man leaning against the fence, watching them with a thoughtful expression. He was tall and lean, with weathered skin and kind eyes. His face was lined with the marks of hard work and long days in the sun. This was Samuel Hayes. Martha stopped the wagon and called out, "Samuel, I brought you some help." Samuel straightened up and walked towards them, his gaze sweeping over the Cole family. "Martha," he said, his voice deep and warm. "What have you got here?" Martha introduced Eliza and her siblings, explaining their situation. Samuel listened intently, his expression softening as he heard their story. "I'm sorry to hear about your troubles," he said, his eyes filled with sympathy. "But you're welcome here. I can always use an extra pair of hands, or 7. He gave a small smile. Samuel Hayes was known throughout the county as a good man. He was fair, honest, and always willing to lend a helping hand. He had inherited the ranch from his father and had worked tirelessly to keep it afloat. But lately, he had been struggling. His foreman had left, and he was finding it difficult to manage the ranch on his own. He had prayed for help, but had not expected it to arrive in the form of a young woman and 6 children. He saw the weariness in Eliza's eyes, the hunger in the children's faces. He knew what it was like to struggle, to feel alone and lost. He couldn't turn them away. "You can stay here as long as you need," he said, his voice firm. "We'll figure something out." Eliza felt a wave of relief wash over her. Samuel Hayes seemed like a good man, a kind man. Maybe, just maybe, they had finally found a place where they could belong. Martha smiled, sensing Eliza's relief. "I knew you two would get along," she said. "Samuel has a heart of gold." As Martha prepared to leave, she gave Eliza a hug. "Take care of yourself, dear," she whispered. "And don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it." Eliza watched as Martha drove away, a sense of gratitude filling her heart. Then, she turned to Samuel, her eyes filled with hope. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes," she said. "We won't let you down." Samuel smiled. "Just call me Samuel," he said, "and welcome to the ranch." Samuel showed them to a small but cozy cabin near the main house. It wasn't much, but it was clean and dry, and the children were thrilled to have a place of their own again. The first few days were a flurry of activity as they settled in and learned the ropes of ranch life. Eliza quickly proved to be a hard worker. She helped Samuel with everything from mending fences to tending the cattle. She learned how to ride a horse, how to brand the calves, and how to shoot a rifle. She was a quick learner and eager to please, and Samuel was impressed by her determination and her willingness to work. Sarah, now a bit stronger, helped Eliza with the cooking and cleaning. She was a natural in the kitchen, and she soon learned how to bake bread and make stew. She also took on the responsibility of caring for Thomas, who adored her. Peter, with his love for stories, kept the younger children entertained. He would tell them tales of cowboys and Indians, of brave heroes and daring adventures. He also helped Samuel with the horses, grooming them and cleaning their stalls. John, still full of energy, became Samuel's shadow. He followed him everywhere, asking questions and offering to help with any task. He learned how to herd cattle, how to repair equipment, and how to ride a horse like a seasoned cowboy. Little Mary, shy and quiet, found comfort in the animals. She would spend hours in the barn, petting the cats and talking to the chickens. She also helped Sarah with Thomas, rocking him to sleep and keeping him entertained. Even Thomas, though just a baby, contributed in his own way. His presence brought joy and laughter to the ranch, reminding everyone of the simple pleasures of life. Samuel watched them all with a growing sense of warmth. He had been alone for so long, and now his ranch was filled with life and laughter. He saw the way Eliza cared for her siblings, the way they worked together, the way they supported each other. He realized that they weren't just helping him with the ranch, they were also helping him heal. The Cole family was adapting to their new life, finding stability and purpose under Samuel's guidance. They were learning new skills, making new friends, and building a new home. And as they worked side by side, day after day, a bond began to form between them, a bond that would change their lives forever. The ranch was no longer just a place to work. It was becoming a family. As the seasons changed, so did the relationship between Eliza and Samuel. What began as gratitude and respect blossomed into something deeper. They found themselves drawn to each other, sharing stories and dreams under the vast Texas sky. Working side by side, they learned to rely on each other. Samuel admired Eliza's strength and resilience, her unwavering dedication to her siblings. Eliza, in turn, admired Samuel's kindness and generosity, his willingness to open his home and his heart to her family. They would often sit on the porch after a long day, watching the sunset and talking about their lives. Samuel told Eliza about his late wife, Sarah, and the dreams they had shared for the ranch. Eliza told Samuel about her parents, her fears, and her hopes for the future. One evening, a storm rolled in, bringing thunder, lightning, and torrential rain. Eliza and Samuel were in the barn, tending to a sick calf. As the storm raged outside, they found themselves huddled together for warmth, their eyes meeting in the dim light. "Thank you, Samuel," Eliza said, her voice barely audible above the roar of the storm. "For everything." Samuel reached out and took her hand, his touch sending a shiver down her spine. "You don't have to thank me," he said. "You and your family have brought so much joy to this ranch." As the storm passed, something shifted between them. They were no longer just friends or employer and employee. They were something more. The challenges of ranch life continued to test them. A drought threatened their crops, a wildfire swept through their grazing land, and a band of outlaws stole some of their cattle. But through it all, Eliza and Samuel faced the challenges together, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Samuel began to see Eliza not just as a hard worker, but as a woman he could love. He admired her spirit, her courage, and her unwavering loyalty to her family. Eliza, in turn, began to see Samuel not just as a kind benefactor, but as a man she could trust, a man she could depend on, a man she could love. One sunny afternoon, as they were riding across the range, Samuel stopped his horse and turned to Eliza. "Eliza," he said, his voice filled with emotion. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I've grown to care for you a great deal, and I care for your siblings too." Eliza's heart skipped a beat. She knew what he was going to say. "Eliza," Samuel continued, his eyes filled with love, "would you do me the honor of becoming my wife?" Eliza's heart soared with joy. "Yes, Samuel," she said, her voice filled with tears. "Yes, I will marry you." Samuel smiled and slipped a simple gold band onto her finger. It had belonged to his late wife, Sarah, and he knew that she would have approved. But their happiness was not without its challenges. Not everyone in the community understood their unconventional family. Some whispered behind their backs, questioning Samuel's motives and judging Eliza for marrying a man so much older than her. Others gossiped about the Cole children, calling them orphans and questioning their parentage. One day, Eliza overheard a group of women talking about her at the general store. "It's just not right," one of them said. "A young woman like that, marrying a widower with 6 children. It's scandalous." Eliza's face flushed with anger. She wanted to confront them, to defend her family. But Samuel held her back. "Don't let them get to you," he said, his voice calm. "Their opinions don't matter. But it wasn't always easy to ignore the prejudice. The Cole children were often teased at school, called names, and excluded from games. Eliza and Samuel tried to shield them from the negativity, but it was difficult. One evening, Peter came home from school in tears. "The other kids say, I don't have a real family," he sobbed. "They say Samuel isn't my real father." Eliza held him close, her heart breaking. "You are a real family," she said, her voice firm. "And Samuel loves you just as much as if you were his own children. Don't ever let anyone tell you otherwise." Samuel, who had overheard the conversation, knelt beside Peter and took his hand. "Peter," he said, his eyes filled with love, "you are my son, and I am proud to be your father." Eliza and Samuel knew that they couldn't change everyone's opinions, but they could teach their children the importance of acceptance and understanding. They could show the community that family wasn't just about blood, but about love, commitment, and support. They started by volunteering at the local church, helping with community events, and reaching out to their neighbors. They showed kindness and generosity to everyone they met, regardless of their opinions. Slowly but surely, attitudes began to change. People started to see the Cole family not as an oddity, but as a loving and supportive unit. They saw the way Eliza and Samuel cared for their children, the way the children worked hard on the ranch, the way they contributed to the community. The Hayes family was teaching everyone that family can come in many forms and that love knows no boundaries. The engagement of Eliza and Samuel was a joyous occasion, a symbol of the new family they were building together. The children were overjoyed. They had come to love Samuel as a father, and they were thrilled that he was going to marry Eliza. Sarah helped Eliza choose a wedding dress, a simple but elegant gown made of white cotton. Peter wrote a poem for the occasion, expressing his gratitude to Samuel for taking them in. John helped Samuel build a new table for the reception, his small hands working diligently alongside Samuel's. Mary made flower garlands to decorate the barn, her quiet presence adding a touch of beauty to the preparations. And even Thomas, now a toddler, toddled around, spreading joy and laughter wherever he went. The wedding was a small but heartfelt affair. Martha came, of course, along with other friends and neighbors from the community. The ceremony was held in the meadow, under the shade of a giant oak tree. The sun shone brightly, and a gentle breeze rustled through the leaves. Eliza walked down the aisle, her heart filled with love. She saw Samuel standing at the altar, his eyes filled with warmth and admiration. As she reached his side, he took her hand, and she knew that she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The preacher spoke of love, commitment, and family. He talked about the importance of supporting each other through thick and thin. He talked about the power of love to heal and transform. As Eliza and Samuel exchanged vows, tears streamed down their faces. They promised to love and cherish each other, to support each other through whatever challenges lay ahead, and to always put their family first. After the ceremony, everyone gathered in the barn for the reception. There was food, music, and dancing. The children played games, and the adults shared stories and laughter. As the evening drew to a close, Eliza and Samuel stood on the porch, watching the stars twinkle in the night sky. "I love you, Samuel," Eliza said, her voice filled with emotion. "I love you too, Eliza," Samuel replied, his arms wrapped around her. "And I love our family." They knew that their life together wouldn't always be easy. There would be challenges and setbacks, but they also knew that they could face anything as long as they had each other. Their love was a beacon of hope, a symbol of the new family they had created, a testament to the power of love to overcome all obstacles. The Hayes family was complete. The wedding marked a new beginning for the Hayes family. It was a turning point, a moment when they solidified their commitment to each other and to the ranch. The celebration wasn't just about Eliza and Samuel. It was about the entire community coming together to support their unconventional family. The days following the wedding were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. Eliza and Samuel worked side by side, their love and respect for each other growing stronger with each passing day. The children thrived under their care, their laughter echoing through the ranch. They faced challenges, of course. There were droughts, storms, and financial difficulties. But they faced them together as a family. They learned to rely on each other, to support each other, and to never give up. One year, a particularly harsh winter threatened their cattle. The snow fell for days, burying the grazing land and making it difficult to find food for the animals. Many ranchers lost their entire herds. Eliza and Samuel worked tirelessly to save their cattle. They spent long hours in the cold, breaking ice, hauling hay, and tending to the sick animals. The children helped in any way they could, carrying water, feeding the chickens, and keeping the fires burning. The community rallied around them, offering help and support. Neighbors brought food, blankets, and extra hands. Together, they managed to save most of their cattle. That winter taught them a valuable lesson, that they were not alone. They were part of a community that cared about them, a community that was willing to help them in times of need. As the years passed, the Hayes family grew stronger and more resilient. Eliza and Samuel had more children of their own, adding to their already large and loving family. The ranch prospered, and they became respected members of the community. They continued to teach their children the importance of love, acceptance, and understanding. They showed them that family wasn't just about blood, but about commitment, support, and shared experiences. The Hayes family became a symbol of hope and inspiration to others. They proved that even in the harsh landscape of 1873 Texas, love could conquer all, and that family could come in many forms. Their unity and the joy they shared spread throughout the community, inspiring others to open their hearts and embrace those who were different. The wedding wasn't just the start of a marriage, it was the start of a legacy. Life on the ranch continued, a tapestry woven with both joy and sorrow. The children grew, each finding their own path in life. Sarah became a teacher, sharing her love of learning with others. Peter became a writer, his stories captivating audiences near and far. John followed in Samuel's footsteps, becoming a rancher himself. Mary continued to find solace in the animals, becoming a veterinarian. And Thomas, the baby who had once been so fragile, grew into a strong and capable young man. Eliza and Samuel faced their own personal trials. There were illnesses, accidents, and moments of doubt. But they always found strength in each other, their love a constant source of comfort and support. One day, Samuel fell ill. He grew weaker and weaker, his once strong body failing him. Eliza cared for him tirelessly, her love unwavering. The children gathered around his bedside, offering words of comfort and support. As Samuel lay dying, he looked at Eliza, his eyes filled with love. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me a family." Eliza held his hand, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Samuel," she said, "and I will always be grateful for the life we shared." After Samuel's death, Eliza was heartbroken, but she knew that she had to be strong for the sake of her children. She took over the running of the ranch, determined to keep Samuel's legacy alive. The children rallied around her, offering their help and support. They worked together, just as they had always done, and they managed to keep the ranch afloat. Eliza continued to live on the ranch for many years, surrounded by her children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. She became a matriarch, a symbol of strength and resilience. She never forgot her parents, but she also never let their abandonment define her. She had created her own family, a family built on love, commitment, and shared experiences. The Hayes family became a testament to the power of the human spirit, a demonstration of the strength of a chosen family. They had faced adversity, prejudice, and heartbreak, but they had always emerged stronger, their bonds of love unbroken. Their story was a reminder that family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who love you, support you, and stand by you, no matter what. And the Hayes family stood by each other through it all. Years later, as Eliza sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching her grandchildren play in the fields, she reflected on her life. She had faced many challenges, many hardships, but she had also experienced great joy, great love, and great fulfillment. She thought about her parents, who had abandoned her and her siblings. She didn't know what had happened to them, but she hoped that they had found happiness. She had forgiven them, not because they deserved it, but because she needed to move on. She thought about Martha, who had given them a helping hand when they needed it most. She had been a true friend, a true angel. She thought about Samuel, her beloved husband, who had given her a home, a family, and a love that had lasted a lifetime. She missed him every day, but she knew that his spirit lived on in their children and grandchildren. And she thought about her siblings, who had stood by her side through it all. They were her family, her chosen family, and she loved them more than words could say. Eliza knew that her life had been far from perfect, but it had been a good life, a meaningful life. She had learned the true meaning of family, that it wasn't about blood, but about love, support, and commitment. The Hayes family had faced adversity, prejudice, and heartbreak, but they had always emerged stronger, their bonds of love unbroken. Their story was a testament to the power of the human spirit, a demonstration of the strength of a chosen family. As the sun set over the Texas landscape, casting a golden glow on the ranch, Eliza smiled. She knew that her legacy would live on.